Welcome to Diaries of an Entrepreneur, where we uncover the real stories behind the journey, the wins, the losses, and the lessons that shape entrepreneurs and investors just like you. In each episode, we go behind the scenes and we highlight reels to bring you the truth about building, scaling, and living the entrepreneurial life. This is more than just business. This is Diaries of an Entrepreneur. Let's dive in. Diaries of an Entrepreneur, Bill Porter. If you had to describe entrepreneurship in one word today, what would it be?
Creating, I think is a word that immediately jumps out. There's so much that is loaded into that word entrepreneur, but at the core, you want to build, create, you want to do something, create something that either isn't in the market or is not done well in the market. There's a lot of variables into it, but I would say definitely creating.
What's one moment in your journey that made you say, this is why I want to be my own boss?
Right out of college, wanted to be a journalist, and there was no journalism jobs back then. So I ended up going into PR and got an internship, then started my career at different companies in tech PR. And it was interesting how working in terms of doing the work, and then how much they valued you at the end of the day. And it really, there was a contrast. I was still very, very early in my career. The ones that were doing had the least value, and it seemed like they churned a lot, being that one of those people. And I remember sitting and thinking, this isn't how I want my career to go. I would rather work with people together collaboratively than be just a cog in a wheel. And that sort of started my exploration down startups and specifically marketing, but then obviously over time, different things, operations, and kind of rolled everything in. But that one experience, a couple of experiences over the course of a couple of years in the beginning of my career really cemented the fact that this was the direction I needed to go.
What about on the flip side though? Like during that process, was there a moment where you're like, what the hell am I thinking?
Oh, there was a lot of moments where I still am thinking, what the hell am I thinking? I could very easily go and sit at a desk from 9 to 5 and be very happy with literally pushed across my desk. And I have those moments of, what are those trade-offs? Is it right for what I'm doing? But at the end of the day, I know I wouldn't be happy doing that. I wouldn't be happy unless I'm creating, unless I'm helping kind of mold something that I could put my own fingerprints on.
What's the biggest personal freedom entrepreneurship has given you?
To a certain extent, so the freedom that comes with entrepreneurship is allowing you to express yourself more and be, I think, more free, test boundaries, kind of push beyond personal comfort zones as well. That's been amazing as life continues and goes on, and personal life, kids growing up, all of those kinds of things. You're able to still stay sharp and still understand that you're adding value to something bigger than you, is the idea that I keep telling myself.
Yeah, you've talked a lot about freedom. We spoke quite a bit about with the guest who was really adamant about creating a life for himself or a name for himself and having some rhythm or scale of freedom in his life. How has running your own show changed your life outside of work?
Yeah, it allows that freedom, but also flexibility is another word to use for it, where raising 2 boys and having a family, that takes a priority. The boys are a big part of who I am, and I want to be able to be there in the different experiences. So, for example, going to their sports game after school at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or picking them up at school at 2 o'clock when it's early dismissal. Those types of, call it freedom, are not necessarily a given unless you're able to help drive the policies that make that happen. That comes with that entrepreneurship layer that allows you to have that flexibility.
Do you feel like you have control, or does sometime the business sweep you up and control you?
Oh, it's a double-edged sword. There's days, weeks, nights, you are just heads down doing to get things done for the next milestone. And it becomes a cycle of having moments and having time to have that flexibility, but also having those moments where there really is no other backstop. You are the one that is doing. You are the one that's making this happen. That you need to go make it happen.
Yeah.
There definitely are trade-offs.
Well, give us a highlight reel moment. A client, a deal, or a project that reminded you, yep, I'm built for this.
Early on in my career, this was, I'm not going to get the date right, so I'm not even going to say it. Just say my first 5 years of working. I was working at a tech startup in sales. I was actively looking to get into the marketing side and to grow at the current company, applying just looking for another fit in the marketing operations side. And I had a client pitch and went down to Palo Alto, went into the office of the client and essentially pitched them on our services to get basically more advertising space, if you will. I still remember this vividly because I drove down with my boss at the time, did the pitch. There was a CEO, there was a few other people in the room. All went well, and we were getting ready to go back up to the office. We were up in San Francisco. The CEO of the company pulls me aside, says, "Hey, I want to talk to you." Looks at me and said, "Presentation was great. Would you be interested in working here?" I was floored. I just like, okay, this is really interesting. Then the uncomfortable ride home with the boss, the current boss, was fun, or back up to the office. But no, it was interesting in the sense that the presentation, was irrelevant at that point.
Yeah.
He basically said, okay, I liked how your demeanor, I liked how you acted, I liked the business case and argument that you had. Almost like a little mini kind of test case. That stuck with me forever because then I ended up working there for 8 years, was very, very happy with the different roles that I was in. That one specific job started in like the advertising side, then ended over time taking over all of marketing and then pivoting into mobile apps. And there's a lot to unpack there, but that one specific instance was okay, I could do this. I impressed someone enough to make that sort of a statement.
Yeah, that's a great story. What's the part of being your own boss nobody warned you about?
The thing no one warns you about is the emotional roller coaster that comes with entrepreneurship. Every day is a different mood. There could be the different shades of happy, the different shades of upset, but there's a spectrum. And that spectrum genuinely changes day by day. People say, oh, it's hard to start your own business. But it's very, very surface level when they say it's hard. I mean, there's a lot of hard things to do in life. The emotional balance that you go through and the emotional client 5 is upset or client 6 is happy. You're balancing these things on a micro level and also trying to control your own emotional wavelength.
It's like adulting on steroids.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, with the teenage son, I see his range of emotions and feel like it's almost being a teenager too. Some of these emotions that just come out, you don't necessarily understand why they're there. Like there will be days when I wake up and I'm like, I'm just pissed off. Why am I pissed off? We just had a client win. Why am I upset? It's like, oh, because I have 3 or 4 deliverables that I haven't turned around that I set my own deadline for, but I still missed my own deadline. Yeah, it's that emotional journey that really is an interesting one.
How do you manage the roller coaster of cash flow, feast and famine?
Managing cash flow is really about perspective and understanding kind of where you want to invest. And that goes towards the house, that goes towards the kids, that goes towards future, current, whether or not, getting really granular, but whether or not you take a nice vacation. I don't necessarily tie it to performance of the company at the given moment. It's more combination of where past, current, and future. And understand that balance of just like forecasting a business, you can kind of forecast where you want your career to be in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, where you want your company to be. You want to be conservative with cash and you want to be conservative with where that goes, but you still also want to plan that out. It's not necessarily trying to keep up with the highs and keep up with the lows. you splurge every so often, but for the most part, it's a pretty steady flow.
Yeah, systems and process rather than just feel.
Exactly. And that's where early on, I went by feel. And when you go by feel, it doesn't catch up to you. That's the wrong way to say it. It's kind of going back to that conversation about the emotions. Like your emotional, it adds another layer of emotional cycle to it, where it really emphasizes the lows and it emphasizes the highs.
Yeah.
And if there's some sort of mental stability underneath you, some sort of grounding, it could be towards a financial side that helps put things into perspective when you are going in through the highs and lows of any given day.
What's been one of your biggest sacrifices in business? Personal sacrifices?
Yeah, is really climbing the corporate ladder. I've never really did that. You look around, you see people and friends and former colleagues that are, work their way up these big companies. You think, okay, that would have been an interesting thing to do. I'm pretty sure I could have done that. It just never occurred. The other personal sacrifice with entrepreneurship, I think just in general, you're always taking a leap of faith. The stability of any given company, any given day adds a level and a layer to your personality that is omnipresent, doesn't go away.
Have you ever had a moment when you were seriously thinking about throwing in the towel, and what held you back?
There were points in my career when I have bounced back and forth, where I went to big companies, to a certain extent, kind of threw in the towel for sat on the sidelines for a minute. The stark reminders of large companies in corporate America, I wouldn't stay long at those companies. You could play the game, but it wasn't for me.
Have you ever made a decision that cost you dearly, to the point where you were traumatically hit in the shorts financially, emotionally, or both?
Yes, both. So in terms of experience, and this is a life lesson for everyone watching, I was at a company, a very stable company. This was kind of my on the sideline moment. I went back into PR. I had a pretty comfortable gig. I had some good clients. I was working around the clock and started to get some fatigue and starting to get some burnout. One of the CEOs who came in as a prospect client seemed very genuine, entrepreneur, had a conversation and said, yeah, I'm actually funding this company. Would you be interested in helping? And I jumped in. It was never a good fit. I tried to make it work. It never was a good fit. And that didn't last long. Then I was back scrambling a couple months later.
Yeah. How do you deal with self-doubt when the stakes are high, Bill?
I would look at it as, how do you just deal with self-doubt on a daily basis? Because when stakes are high, it's the same. First, early in my career, I would ignore self-doubt. Push things so far down that you would want it to disappear. That's not healthy. Lots of conversations, therapy sessions, understanding where the right balance is. Almost think of it as like a risk assessment. Why am I doubting this? What is the underlying concern? Oh, this deal may not go through. Okay, fine. Where's the worry coming in? And then kind of piece it back to the point where you almost have an operational checklist of, okay, I can control these things, so I'm going to do this to relieve a little bit of that doubt.
How do you decide which risks are worth taking?
How I decide how to take risks is, there's not much science to it. It's
go big or go home.
Is all dependent on that roller coaster of emotions. And I'd say the risk reward, I try to focus on risks with the biggest upside, but then at the same time balance them out with, kind of call them quick wins, if you will.
Base hits.
Yeah, just something that you can say, okay, I have accomplished this. And whether it's an investment strategy for personal finances or what sort of marketing campaign can I push out for the company, I lean into risk more. And I think that's part of just the overall entrepreneur mindset. But how I gauge them really comes down to just focusing on that given opportunity and where the upside is, where the downside is, but more importantly, how I, at that moment, just the raw emotions.
So seasoning and experience can really help dictate and or guide you through the decision-making process.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
The decision-making process, a lot of it's muscle memory and learn, right? For example, we talked about kind of that bad experience jumping in with a co-founder that didn't quite appeal. You add that to your playbook. Then when you go back and you get presented an opportunity, you vet, you do other things that you know will help balance off that risk. For the most part, after a certain amount of time, you're going to start seeing the same things over and over again. How you react to them is up to you, and that dictates where the remaining portion of that risk goes.
What advice would you give your younger self before starting this journey?
I mean, other than invest in Bitcoin? No, I think
we've said that, all of us.
I know, right? Geez. No, I think what I would tell my younger self is be confident. Never stop learning. It's one thing to go and say you want to start a company. It's another to actually learn how to do it. And you're going to have to start at companies learning the basics of whatever industry you want to get into or whatever operational tasks you want to get into. Embrace it, learn, and grow, but go for it.
If someone's watching this thinking about quitting their 9 to 5, what's your reality check to them?
Like, really ask yourself why. Is it because sexy, glamorous entrepreneurship path is there, or is it because you truly are unhappy with where you are? As an entrepreneur and as someone who's been employee one at companies, it's a lot of work. And if you're thinking, okay, I'm already doing a lot of work, I don't want to do as much work, you're doing 2-3 times as much for not as much pay in most cases, especially when you're starting out. If it's a financial thing that you're thinking, okay, you've got to plan it out and be prepared, because your 9 to 5 is stable. Your 9 to 5 probably has a 401k, has whatever it is, health, like really good health insurance. So you've got to really understand, is this important to me? How does it affect my entire personal life, right? Family, friends, your health, right? That's another element of it is, okay, are you going to have time for you? And that's a big part of trying to find that balance.
Yeah. The W-2 is, especially if you have a good W-2, is like the golden handcuffs.
Yep.
You might be making a lot of money, it might be really cushy, but are you really pushing your humanity to the next level?
Yeah.
And in entrepreneurship, I think, or in business in general, we rise and fall to the levels of our systems and process. What sort of habits or systems you've kept to keep you sane through all the chaos?
Yeah, kind of alluded a bit to it in the prior question. Looking at what's keeping me sane is personal health and making sure that I carve out time for a workout every day, whatever it may be, swimming, something. This is kind of a broader thing for anybody. This is someone who, whether you're working 9 to 5 or working for yourself, carving out time to be your best person.
The beginning of your day, do you start with coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee. I start with coffee every day.
Every day.
Every day.
It's the lifeblood that makes the world go round.
I make a cup of coffee, then the kids give me a bad time because I'm usually making my second half of my coffee as we're walking out the door to go to school. I was like, Dad, you should don't make that cup of coffee. We're really late. I'm like, just take 2 seconds. So
the next question is the beginning stages or the beginning phases of being an entrepreneur. You're typically working around the clock. So you're up early, you're going to bed late. As a seasoned entrepreneur, as somebody that's experienced, do you find yourself an early bird or a late night owl entrepreneur?
a bit of both. I would say my time where I can do, and this is something that I think there's a rhythm in everybody that you follow. I've done this for a while in my career where I carve out time to create in the morning. In the afternoon, I carve out time for meetings.
Cool.
And that way it's whatever I've done is fresh in my head to have those conversations. But I feel like a combination of waking up, workout, getting kind of into that right headspace and just going and doing. And then subsequently in the afternoons having those meetings.
When starting out and you're scaling a company, you have to hire people. You need to build a team. I really like Dan Martell's replacement ladder model, where he starts hiring at the administrative rung of the replacement ladder. For you, when you started, who were some of the first people that you brought into your team? Was it an accountant, an assistant, a marketer?
Best early hires I've had is in operations, understanding how the engine works. And from there, putting those pieces in place that speed that engine up. It really does help as you grow. Those are usually the first few. Call it a client success, call it a marketing operations, it could span across the different
columns.
Yeah, but ultimately someone who understands
pillars.
how to make the engine move.
Yeah,
is the biggest piece.
How about one business book you'd recommend to every entrepreneur?
I don't know if I can swear on this podcast, but The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Who authored that one?
Oh gosh, why am I blanking on that? How to let go. And really how to be your own authentic self. And it's a business book, and it talks about challenges and how to interact with people and how to negotiate. It just stood out as I actually was on a business trip, and I think it was Chicago, in the airport, looked at that book and said, I'm gonna buy it. And I bought it and I read it on the flight home, and it's sitting on my shelf.
Amazing. That's amazing. For folks who don't know much about you, Bill, what industry do you really work in, and what is your biggest pet peeve in that respective industry?
I could say technology is in the industry, but overall, the current company is in data privacy, which is kind of cybersecurity adjacent. The biggest pet peeve, I think, for me on any sort of technology is people get way too technical, way too fast. When you're talking about product, the simpler the better. A lot of these industries, especially data privacy specifically, there's a lot to know and there's a lot to understand, and there's a lot of different areas of expertise. You'd look at an enterprise, they have a team of sometimes dozens that are only responsible for regulations, for the data inside, for mapping, for the privacy policy. There's a lot of different, not only knowledge types, but also job types. So there's lawyers, you're talking about engineers, you're talking about executives. When you start talking very, very narrow and very deep on things right out the gate, it throws people off, because it's like saying, okay, you want to start talking about, okay, I'm going to buy you a shirt, Diego, right? Instead of talking about what type of shirt, you're already talking about what size. You're not necessarily getting to the point of what that emotion or what that item is. You're already talking about the X's and O's and the technical side. And there's time and place for that kind of a thing. But a lot of people in this industry jump into, I'm smart because I know that you're, a large or whatever. Like, you go into that very specific vertical, and it kind of throws me off.
So what's your next big goal for your business? And can you describe that in a single sentence?
I can describe it in one word. Fundraising.
Fundraising.
Yes.
Well, tell us more.
So we are at the fast growth stage, adding clients. In the next, hopefully by this release, we will secure funding and scale. And this comes with adding team, adding additional functionality and building. But the fundraising is the word of the day.
Yeah. We wish you the ultimate best in that project, and hope that this business of yours scales to the moon.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time, Bill.
Absolutely.
I think that's it. So thanks for being on the show. Another episode, or another part of our Diaries of an Entrepreneur series. Can't wait for you guys to check out the next one. Another amazing episode of Diaries of an Entrepreneur. This one with Bill Porter, my new friend in business. I hope you guys got a lot of lessons out of this conversation. I sure did. And to be able to sit down with business owners just like Bill is an absolute treat. Be sure to click the subscribe button below so that you guys could stay tuned on the next episode of Diaries of an Entrepreneur.